today we're gonna kick this up to a totally different level. I'm talking today about interspecies communication, something I'm very passionate about. Well, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, which, as a sidebar, do you ever think of Obi-Wan looking to Luke and saying, a long time from now, in a galaxy far, far away, it'll be 8 below with fog in Minnesota. Maybe not. Anyway, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, my wife and I met a puppy named Mac. And he was a Boston Terrier, 6 weeks old. And you put out your hand and you had 2 little feet and 2 little feet, and that was the whole dog. And he was a bundle of energy. He was the only survivor of a litter of 2. And we would say he got a double shot of energy. He was super smart. At 6 weeks old, he was paper trained. Every time, right on paper. The only time we'd have a little problem is occasionally he'd get too excited and he'd have his back 2 feet on the paper and his front 2 feet off the paper. He's pointing in the wrong direction. So we have little issues sometimes, but not often. Mac was so full of energy, he used to bounce. It took him months to learn how to walk. He'd just bounce everywhere. A long time to get this. I can have 2 feet on the ground at the same time. It was really kind of freaky. And he was a bundle of love. Mac belonged to my wife's grandmother, who had an old dog she had for years and years, and the dog had died. And being my wife's grandmother, she decided she needed another dog. She had to have another dog. It was like, you got a lot going on. You maybe don't want another dog. No, gotta have a dog, gotta have a dog. So she got a puppy. But she didn't want a puppy that was bouncing all over the place. She wanted another already old dog that would get up, go to the door when it rang, ruff, 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 eat, lay down, and take a nap. But they don't come that way. They come as puppies. So she's got this puppy, and she's struggling with this puppy. And my wife and I were just getting married at that time, and we said, okay, tell you what, just hang tight. We will take the dog once we get settled in here. Okay. Now, my wife Marie was not really keen on starting newly married life with a puppy. It was 11 months at that time. So one day while I'm out working late, she sat down with the dog and Max said, all right, we got to get some things hashed out here. If you're going to live here, we have to have an understanding of how things are going to work. Mag looked up at her and goes, okay, cool. Works for me. And one day, Marie actually trained Mac on all the basic command sits, say, get off the couch, all those kind of things that you'd be inclined to do. And that was a testament to both Marie's ability to communicate with Mac and Mac's ability to listen. He was actually an incredibly smart dog. He was a great listener. He understood when you talked to him. And actually, he was pretty clear in communicating back. He said what he meant what he said. No games. Unfortunately for Marie, communicating with the other species in the house, which would be male, was not quite as easy. And that's actually what I really want to talk about today, is the interspecies communication between males and females, particularly young married couples. Let me back up just a little bit. A momentous moment happened a few weeks ago, at the end of January. It was 33 years since my wife and I went on our first date. Pretty cool. Let me set the stage. I was living in Washington, D.C., just outside. Marie lived in New York. Called her up on Wednesday. Hey, you want to go out? We met a few weeks before. She said yes. I took a huge leap of faith as an 18-year-old who had driven to New York twice by myself and been to her house once. I went to college that day. After class, jumped in the car, and I drove the 250 miles to New York, which normally takes about 4 hours. Now, mind you, this is 1981. There's no internet. There's no cell phones. There's no texting. But I was 18. I'm bulletproof, man. I'm just rocking. And everything was going according to plan, except I screwed up one little thing. There's something that happens every week in the New York area on a Friday. That's called traffic. A lot of traffic. And so I'm making my drive and I'm running late. And not just a little late. Finally, but I'm not even paying attention to that. I'm just like a happy little puppy myself. I'm going on a date. Great looking girl. It's good. She said yes. We're going to have a good evening. I find her house, which is a miracle unto itself, because again, no GPS. Get there, I bound up the stairs. I'm just happy excited. And she's pretty cool about it. And then we go out to get something to eat. And over the course of that first dinner, we both got our first clue as to the communication adventure we were about to embark on. At one point, she looked at me very calmly and said, "Why didn't you call?" And I got that deer in the headlights look. I don't know. It actually never occurred to me to stop somewhere, use a payphone, and actually call to say, "Hey, I'm running ridiculously late." This comes out of something that I now know is two different styles of communication from our respective families. We grew up in totally different worlds. Marie grew up in a house, she's got one sister, so she grew up in a house with 3 females and 1 male. Those guys were great at communication. I grew up with 2 brothers, so we had a house with 4 males and 1 female. We were horrible at communication. When those two cultures meet, every family has a communication culture. When those cultures meet, that is not just like oil and water. That's gasoline and a match. It's a little interesting. I quickly learned, as a new husband, that communication is not just verbal. We work on this every week at Toastmasters, a lot of ways to communicate. One of the early things that I can recall is the look. The look comes, totally nonverbal form of communication. The look comes in several interesting flavors. One of which looks kind of like this. Which is, "You're so smart, how can you be so stupid? What were you thinking? What are you thinking?" That one's not too bad. That's not too bad. The other one's a little more serious. That's the death look. It's a death look. That look translates roughly to, "If I kill him now, right now, on the spot, no jury of my peers," meaning a jury of women, "would convict me of murder. In fact, it would be justifiable homicide. They would pin a medal on me and for making the world a smarter place." That's the one you have to watch out for. That's a very scary look. Now, I have to say, I was a little difficult at the time. But it's not entirely my fault. As a male, I am genetically predisposed to stupid. You guys may not realize this, but men and women, their brains are actually different. Men have a single-threaded brain. Well, most of us in here are geeks. We kind of get the single versus parallel processing thing. Men have single-threaded brains. We do one thing at a time. So we might be left brain, build fire. Write code. Then we switch over to right brain, get card for a wife. And we go back over to left brain, kill dinosaur. One thing, some of us over the years have gotten rather adept at switching very quickly. So you may not realize that we're single-threaded, but there is a definite switch. And every time you have to switch, you push in the clutch, your brain disengages for a minute, and you switch. It's an effort. Women's brains, and you can actually look at this. There are YouTube videos and things that they have online brain scans that show scans of men thinking and women thinking. When you look at a man's brain, you will actually see one discrete area light up at a time. Women, their brains are much better brains. Much better brains. It is truly life in the fast lane. It's everything all the time. So they're over on here. It's like, what do I have to do? I have to get the shopping list. Your mother's anniversary is coming up. I got to do all this. It's like, oh, that was really so sweet. They're back and forth. Their front brain, their back brain. They're everywhere. And so they're really good at communication because they're firing on all cylinders all the time. If you don't believe that this is a fact, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm going to give you Exhibit A to the multi-threaded brain. And Exhibit A is the pronoun. I have seen this play out over and over and over and over and over again over the years. It goes something like this. My wife and I are sitting down to dinner with my in-laws. So we have a balance here. We have 2 males and 2 females. We're going to have a conversation. And it's dinner. These guys are our friends. We're having a wonderful dinner, a lot of conversation, and my father-in-law and I are listening intently and participating in the conversation. It starts out something like this. My wife will say something, or my mother-in-law will say something like, hey, how's your friend Phil doing? Is she doing okay? Yeah, she's doing great. How's Mary doing? Oh, she's doing great. She's now in college and doing really well. And, oh yeah, and they're doing okay. Yeah, she's fine, and he's still going to do it. And this will go on and on and on. No proper nouns other than Phil and Mary are in that conversation. Right? And about 10 minutes later, you have a line that sounds something like this. And then she slipped and fell off her bike and broke her wrist, and she wound up in the hospital. At which point, my father-in-law and I stopped. I was like, Mary went to the hospital? I didn't know that. And I get that look. How could you be so stupid? That was 3 conversations ago. What's the matter with you? Keep up. It's crazy. I've seen this with relatives, except with my wife, her sister, her mother. I've seen it with friends. I've seen it with just random women. It is amazing the ability to carry on what I would call multiple conversations without the use of a proper noun anywhere in there, and everybody except the men know what's being talked about. Mm-hmm. Now, I will tell you that this is not entirely my fault as a man. There is a bit of a problem. Sometimes women lie. In answer to a direct, pointed question, they lie and say something that does not mean at all what they say. For example, walk into the room. How are you? Fine. Fine. Gentlemen. She is not fine. After you've been doing this for a little while, you might actually show a little concern and have a follow-up question. I don't think you're fine. What's wrong? Nothing. And I will tell you, if the temperature in the room just dropped 30 degrees and the windows frosted over, there is a very good likelihood that whatever is going on, you are at the center of it, and it is your fault.